NewYorkStockTrades.com. Today we have a special guest with us in special news, Bill Morton. Bill is CEO of Terrane Copper. Bill, you've been early on the Stardust property. Today, you and your partner Sun Metals announced drilling results on the Stardust property. Very exciting drilling results, some of the best that I've seen in Canada this year. Could you tell us about your experience and Terrane Copper and how that can benefit Terrane Copper and the Stardust property and Sun Metals? Please update us on that.
Okay, very quickly. Terrane Copper Corp itself has been a public company since 2008, and it actually came by way of an amalgamation of property interests, one being the Terrane project, which we own, which had an interest held by another company, and we created Terrane Copper Corp. Along the way, we've expanded the portfolio of projects. Currently have 3 of them. They all have serious copper as part of the mix. They all have resources. But we're only going to talk about this one right now. I don't want to confuse everybody by diluting my story. So the Stardust project was previously called the Stardust project. It goes back to the tail end of the Second World War. It was found as a consequence of actually looking for mercury as part of the war effort, and they found precious metal veins, rich silver, gold, and that over the years was followed along a corridor of, let's call it a corridor of activity for 2.5 kilometers, and transitioned into 3 or 4 styles of mineralization that have analogs that are very serious in other parts of the world. What it was that the veins transitioned into what we call manto zones, which were parallel to stratigraphy and are rich in zinc and gold. And then as we got closer, further up the hill, there was a buried intrusion that we did not know about, or they did not know about, and the chemistry and everything started changing again, and is what we call copper-gold skarns started being encountered. And that right now is the focus of what this current drill program is all about. And one of the concepts was that the previous work in there, we didn't find it ourselves entirely, but that it was not interpreted properly, and there was a number of lenses of mineralization with extremely good grade, but the story would get better if we could figure out why these lenses didn't connect. We came up with a concept of putting a fault in and down dropping part of one side of the fault, and if we did that, we could explain how to put most of it back together again, and it became apparent that if we continued along on that concept, that we had not tested let's call it the pregnant horizon, that where it would be if this was in fact a correct hypothesis. So we did, and we got a 60-meter intercept of extremely rich mineralization. It was first sort of on the core tables the end of September. We put a rush on the first half of the hole, and it has just come back in the last 2 days, and it is very much the grade that we'd hoped for. It's a 36-meter intercept. It's almost 4% copper. It's 4.5 grams of gold. It's 72 grams per ton of silver, and a little over 1% zinc. So on a copper equivalent basis, using current metal prices, it's around 7.7% copper over a 36-meter intercept. So that's a spectacular intercept. We still have another 30 meters of mineralization that's in the lab which is a continuation from what results we've got. So I think just sort of explaining that a little bit, we are partnered up with Sun Metals Corp. Sun Metals Corp is the geological component is headed by Mark O'Day. Mark O'Day and his partners have been very successful both in capital markets and in discovery. They are credited with most of the work which led to Newmont taking over Long Canyon, the deposit from Frontier Gold, and that was a transaction that put $2 billion into shareholders' hands. So that was one of the reasons that we partnered up with Sun Metals, was just to get access to that kind of market sophistication that they've demonstrated. The deal that they have, refreshing everybody, currently Lorain Copper Corp owns a 100% interest in this project, Stardust. We have a deal with Sun Metals whereby Sun Metals can earn the full 100% less a royalty that we keep in both precious and base metals by issuing 30% of their stock to us at such time as they have spent $6 million on the project. They've currently spent approximately $4 million. It's a couple of $1 million, still to be spent. And actually, I haven't got their issued capital in front of me, but it's over 100 million shares. I think it may be closer to 120. So if you do the math and looking at our share structure, you realize that we could well receive something close to 1 share per share in their stock when they vest their interest in this thing. And at this point in time, the inclination of management would be to dividend those shares back out to shareholders. So what we're really saying here is that every share of Lorain Copper carries an extra share of Sun Metals with it in intrinsic value and sort of the deal. Anyways, just maybe to get myself back online here, maybe I should ask Jeb if there's any questions that he thinks I should address. Jeb?
Bill, let's talk. The last thing I would like to talk about, are there any other projects, or is this the main focus for Lorain Copper?
Well, right now it's the main focus, but the other two projects are very active projects, and one of them is the Lorain project, where we are JV'd with Teck Corporation. Teck has a 51% interest in Lorain. It's a copper-gold project. It is about 35 kilometers to the north of the Stardust project. We own a 49% interest in it with them. Teck has spent $9 million on it. We ourselves, our predecessor company, spend another $7 million. So it's a $16 million investment that we own half of, for all intents and purposes. There currently isn't a program on it. Teck this year decided to not mount a program, and they, being the operator, have that discretion. But very serious project, and it will be back in an active capacity sooner than later. We also, on the BC coast, have a copper molybdenum deposit called the OK Project, and it has a credible resource. It's got a resource of 86 million tons at a grade of 0.31 copper and 0.14% MOS2. We worked on that. We own 100% of it. We did mount a program there a year ago. We didn't do anything this year. Again, sort of keeping our powder dry. And since we were in a program that was going to be $4 to $5 million at Stardust, and we are actually doing a lot of the work. I mean, Sun Metals has a great geological team. So does Lorain Copper Corp. And a lot of our personnel were deployed on that project. So, it was one of the reasons that we went a little quieter on the other projects. But no, we have a total of 3 projects, and they're all. And I think it's important. They're all serious.
Bill, I think it's important to also realize that there's a lot more drilling that's going to be taking place here. I believe, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, there are multiple zones, multiple targets that have been defined. As Mark O'Day said, to quote Mark O'Day unofficially, but as he made the comment to one of our guys just the other day, was that these systems typically have a number of sort of focal points with smoke coming out of them, but there's generally one big lump, and he was speculating that maybe we've got our teeth into it. So it's got to be a whole lot more drilling into this one because it has better grade, better widths, better everything than anything that's been drilled on this property heretofore. So it's going to require a lot of drilling.
Well, Bill Morton, Terrane Copper LLC, please check out their website. You can see he has a wealth of wisdom in BC, and this is a very exceptional, unique deposit in British Columbia at a time when gold and these metals are becoming valuable once again. So thank you, Bill, for giving us an introduction and for highlighting Lorraine's history at the Stardust property and the excitement about hitting and returning the thickest and richest intersections at this project to date. Thanks, Bill, for being here with us today.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for giving me a chance to talk.